welcome to Desert Wanderers, produced by Salt and Light Radio. If you're new here, we bridge the gap between you and the person in the pew next to you. I will be interviewing priests, religious, and laity in our local Boise diocese, asking questions that'll help you navigate your vocation and help build community wherever you are with whatever resources you may have. Let's build the city of God together. So, Welcome. This is Jan and Marian, and we're so excited to have you on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about Storylink Idaho. So, I guess for everyone, I just learned about this, but I think what you guys' mission is just very beautiful. But for everyone that hasn't heard of it, could you guys go into what Storylink Idaho is?
I'm Maryann Kis. I am the founder of Storylink Prison Ministry, and I founded it in 2011. And it's interesting how I happened to find out about Storylink. I'm a clown. And I opened up this book, and the book said a dozen red noses. And I said, what does it take to be one of the dozen red noses? Well, it happened to be Dana Avishine in Missouri. He started Storylink Prison Ministry in Missouri. And what they were doing there, they would take books to the prison, and the residents of the prison would choose a book to read to their child. And I said, I can do that in Idaho. So I called up Dana, the founder of Storylink, and he said yes. And the rest is history. And I've been doing it since 2011.
Wow. Okay, so this is the book you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Here, we'll give everyone. So it's called A Dozen Red Noses. And what in the book caused you to, or what did the book tell you?
Well, because I'm a clown.
All right, hold on, pause. Let's go into that. Tell me how you got into becoming a clown.
Well, I became a clown because one day I went to a park, and they were having a birthday party. And I saw this clown having so much fun, dressed up, talking to all these children, and they were so happy, and they were smiling. And I said, I can be a clown. So I've been a clown ever since.
When was that? How old were you when you decided to become a clown?
Oh, probably about 40 years old or so.
Yeah.
So you were still in the classroom when you did that?
Yes, I still was. Because there were students the students were at the park with me. So I started in 2011 it was. Maybe, yes.
Wow, that's amazing. And so previously, were you a teacher?
Yes, indeed. I was a teacher for 39 years.
What grades did you teach?
Well, I started out in first grade in California at De La Salle School. It's a Catholic school. And then I moved to Boise, and I taught home economics and junior year religion at Bishop Kelly High School in Boise.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, and so then, Jan, how did you get into Storylink Idaho then?
Well, I retired in 2018 and moved back to Idaho with my husband. It was right at the beginning of the COVID. And when that started to ease up a little bit, I was looking for a volunteer opportunity. And I went to a conference, a Respect Life conference at Holy Apostles, and was going around to each of the booths, and I ran into Maryann and learned about Storylink Idaho, and I was thinking, this is something I could do. It's within my value system, and I'm also a retired educator, so kids and books, I can do this. So I signed up and went through the trainings, and the following fall, this was 2022, in November of 2022, the prisons reopened for volunteers again. They had been closed for, 2 years?
About 2 years.
About 2 years. No one was able to go in with any volunteer activities, but they were opened up again, so I went out with Maryann to maximum security prison and had my first experience with Storylink.
So maximum security, that's where, let's go through, can you walk me through, either one of you, could you walk me through what Storylink is?
Well, first of all, I want to share with you that we go to about 7 prisons out on the Pleasant Valley Road. And so what we do, we have a volunteer services coordinator at each prison, and he or she will invite the residents that would like to read to their child, and we get the list sign up. And I'll let Jan finish what's next.
So they have to fill out an application, each resident does, and we refer to the men and women who live in the prisons as residents, not as inmates. They fill out an application, and actually it has to be renewed every month that they want to read, to make sure that they are cleared to have access to their child or grandchild. So the volunteer service coordinator does the background and checks that. When it's approved, and we're out at each site about once a month, we go out and we record the resident reading the book to their child. And we come in with a range of books for children from infancy through age 14, so they can select whichever book that they want. Read the book, record it. They can leave a message in the book to their child as well. And then afterwards, back at the ranch, the recording is uploaded into the cloud, because there's a QR code inside of each book, and so when the book is mailed out to the caregiver and the child, they access that QR code, and it takes them to the site where the recording is, and it's stored there, and they can download and listen to their parent or grandparent read to them.
That's amazing. The QR code technology is fascinating. There's a book that we got from the library. So my 3 children and I sat one day, and each page had a QR code on it, and it would take you to a YouTube link, which would then play the instrument. So it was a book of instruments. And so they could listen to someone playing the instrument. And we had that book probably way too long. I think we may have gotten fined on it. But but the kids loved it. They loved being able to take a picture and listen and all of that. And it was great. They loved it. And I think the reason I find this so interesting, that this is the work that you're doing, is that we have this little device called a Yoto player. And there's other different devices. I can't remember. There's like another one that's more commonly sold in like Walmarts and things, but that have like a little device, like a little character that you put on top, and then whatever the character is, it reads you that story. But these ones have little cards. But the reason we got it was my husband's parents live in Ohio. And so they get to record on the app, and then I can download it to one of the cards, and then my son and my daughter can listen to their grandparents read them a book. Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I'm very familiar with Yoto, because one of our grandchildren has the Yoto, and it's great when they're traveling especially.
Yes.
We just transitioned last year to the use of the QR code. We had been sending out CDs, but more and more people don't have a way to play a CD. Yeah. Some of our kids were sitting in their car seats in the car listening to their recording because it was on a CD, and they're harder to get. So we made this big change.
So tell me about your process. So you bring it, so you take it. Does someone edit the material for you,
No.
or you just cut and paste whatever is read is what's put on the thing?
Right.
And there's always a Storylink volunteer with the residents that's reading. So we know what's going to be on the recording, on the QR code.
Tell me what it's like to watch the residents read these books.
It's absolutely amazing.
Because you can see and hear, and you can see in their eyes, and you can hear in their voice the hope and the happiness that they are able to send out to their loved one. And I remember one of the men at one of the prisons told me that they were so used to hearing their grandfather read a book to them. When grandfather got out of the prison, came home, and the grandfather said hello to his grandson. His grandson immediately said, "Grandpa." So he recognized his grandfather by the voice that he heard when his grandfather was in prison reading a book to him.
That's amazing.
So
That's amazing.
a first time that a resident reads, sometimes can be quite emotional for men as well as women. Sometimes there's tears, and sometimes we have to start over again, and there's nerves too. And we say, just pretend your child is sitting on your lap or you're on the sofa with them and you're reading to them. I had a man one day who had chosen a book that was based on a song, and he actually sang the book. So, yeah.
My daughter's one of her favorite books is Old MacDonald. And so that one gets sang at our house a lot.
And that's what I like to do. Whenever they choose a book that has animals, I'll say to them that they are more than welcome. If they see a cow, they go, moo. Or if they see a kitty cat, meow. And they do. Otherwise, I think that they're kind of the residents, when they read, are kind of composed. But when they see that Storylink volunteers come out, that we're happy to see them, and whatever we can help them make the book more fun and loving to their child or grandchild, we try to promote that.
Yeah. So it seems like they can get very emotional. I think that it might be hard. Do you ever feel like it's hard for them to open up the first couple of times? Do you guys to see them develop themselves as a reader the more that they do it?
Over time, but there's different kinds of readers. We have some people that literacy level is really at a beginning, or English is a second language, and really working hard with the text, but wanting very much to read to their child.
Do you guys offer bilingual books at all?
If I'm there, I will do that, but it has to be a book that's both in English and Spanish, and I'm sitting side by side with the resident. It's usually a board book, so I can follow along with them. Because they're very careful about security things. And any notes that are written in the books are checked before they go, and, no drawings, no second language inside of the book. There's some guidelines that were given by the Idaho Department of Corrections. Gotcha.
So do you have a need for volunteers that are bilingual then?
Well, that would be lovely if we had bilingual volunteers, absolutely. Because I know we've had one gentleman in particular that's really been an advocate for other men at his facility who are primarily Spanish-speaking that would really like to read for their kids also. But, we need to have somebody come in that's truly comfortable with the language and will be able to follow along with the text. Yeah.
Again, so we're kind of in the age that books are a big deal in our house. And hopefully we have lifelong readers. We're also I'm dyslexic, so we'll see how that ends up with our kids. But right now my husband, he works for an immigration office, and so he's getting English and Spanish books that have the text on both sides, right? So you have English above, Spanish below. And we'll read in English and Spanish to our kids. Hopefully they can pick it up a little bit. But
nice. One gentleman that I have that's reading Spanish right now, we use English-Spanish books, so both texts are there, and I have him read both the English and the Spanish. And recently he graduated himself to straight English.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
That's amazing. That's great. They say that for language, it's good to start with little kid books. Just reading very beginner books in the language you'd like to learn. Yeah. And you can start to pick it up. And stories that are familiar to you, obviously. Yeah. But, so we talked about volunteers just a tiny bit, but what about books? Where do you guys get your books?
Well, actually, books fall from the sky.
Really?
Yes, they do.
Is it like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, but with books?
Yes, exactly. That's what I say. You took the words right out of my mouth.
I'm so sorry. I swear I did not know that.
That's right. Well, where do we get the books? Well, we have one volunteer who likes to go to thrift stores. And she has the time to go to thrift stores, and she can find many, many books, unfortunately, that look like they've never been used.
Yeah.
And I think we're finding that that's very true because it's not, these young parents, they haven't really read everything from books. They read it from Kindles, and where else do they get their reading? But books are, we can find many, many new, gently used books.
New and very, we don't want to send out a book that looks like it's been well used. We wanted that to be something new or nearly new for the child who's receiving it.
Yes.
We have books that are donated, but as Maryann said, our volunteer Heidi is awesome at finding things at thrift stores. She'll come in and say, "Yeah, I got these 25 books for $5." And,
yeah.
I'm sure if you even went to thrift stores and said, this is what I'm doing. This is what what the company we are, and this is our goal. They would probably give a lot of those books out for free.
They know her so well because she's in there all the time that, she gets deals sometimes on top of already low prices. They recognize.
And whenever we have a rummage sale at church, it just breaks my heart to see all the children's books that are just very gently used, if at all.
We have some categories that are favorites. Dr. Seuss, with the men in particular, is just, if there's a Dr. Seuss book, it's snapped up right away. Right now, one of the ones that they're asking for a lot is with the character Bluey. And we've not really been able to find those as gently used. They've been full price purchases.
What about Llama Llama?
The Llama Llama, yes, would be great. Yeah.
Pout Pout Fish?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
I love that book.
So when we go out, the boxes are divided by age: 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, and 8 to 14. And then there's a box for spiritual. So we always have some spiritual books for kids about God. And there are men that come in specifically looking for that for their kiddos. And then if there's a holiday coming up, if we're talking about Christmas or Easter or Valentine's Day, and this is ahead of that date, so there's time to mail it out. That's included there as a choice as well.
And that book usually becomes an Easter gift.
Oh, that's
that
very
Easter
sweet.
book that they are able to send out, and the Christmas book's the same way. This is the Christmas present to you, my dear child. Yes.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
Birthday. They'll anticipate their birthday, and this is going to be my child's birthday gift, and it'll get there in time, and that kind of thing.
How many times a week how many times do you go to the prison for them to read?
We go to each facility one time a month, with the exception of one of them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then with that one, do you go more or less?
Every other month.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And have you got to meet any of the children that receive any of these books?
A few months after I had signed up, we went to that conference, the Convicted Conference, and we had a booth at the Convicted Conference, and a gentleman came up to my table, our table, and said, "Storylink, I love you guys." He was on the outside now. He had been released. He says, "My daughter has a stack of books this tall on her nightstand that I recorded and sent out to her while I was serving my time."
You said that you guys sent it out once a month, so that's like 12 books in a year. And so if they've been doing this program throughout their whole stay there, then that's a lot of books for those kids to keep. And you're right, it is this beautiful keepsake that they can pass down. Yeah.
And we have heard, I met a father and his daughter, and she told me, "Yes, I have every book that my daddy's read to me." And she looked up at her dad, and they smiled, and it was wonderful.
And the great thing about the QR code is that if a child moves home or location, because sometimes our kids are in foster care placement or move from one relative to another, they can still access those QR codes wherever they go.
Yeah.
And not have to keep track of the CDs, which is pretty neat.
That is really neat. So are they able to download them from the cloud then?
Yeah, every
Wow.
book that the father or mother, grandfather or grandmother has read is going to be on that same QR code.
Wow.
And they can go in and listen to every book.
And yes, they can download it too.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, so you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, that there's a specific, it's very specific what you can do or what the resident can do with a book. So, but you said that they could leave little messages for their children. So, yeah, could you go in that a little bit?
Well, there's two ways that they can leave a message during a recording. One is writing a message in the book, and that's checked by one of our volunteers to make sure it fits in the guidelines. They can also, when they're recording, and when they identify themselves and say hello to their kids, they can leave a message on the recording as well, before they read and then when they're done reading.
And they usually always say, "I love you."
Yeah.
Yes, we always say we suggest that you say "I love you," but they always do.
So both of you guys were also educators. So let's talk about the importance of reading. Could you guys go into why it's specifically reading a book to their child instead of just maybe like a loving message? Like, you know how they have those little teddy bears that have messages, you can hug them and they say stuff. So what is it that the book is so important, and how does that help the development of the child as well?
What we're really working at is nurturing the relationship between the parent and the child. And I think that there's been some research that shows that our kiddos that have had this opportunity to listen to their parent or grandparent read to them actually have better outcomes later in life. And it really fits in with the goals of IDOC as well, with the Idaho Department of Corrections, of nurturing that family relationship in preparation for returning to the community. You know, as educators, we know lots and lots of books, lots of reading, lots of language. Our young children who have exposure to that do better all around in school, too.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to do anything in any other subject besides reading, you still have to read. English, history, social studies. You still have to be able to read the words and be a reader.
Yeah. But I would say that's probably, as far as Storylink is concerned, a secondary benefit. Really, our primary goal is nurturing that parent-child or grandparent-child relationship. And the residents, many of them do have visits from family or phone calls so that they're able to talk to the kids. Some kids, you know, they're saying, "This is the book I want next month," you know, when they talk on the phone and make a request. And again, our volunteer that manages the library does a really good job of meeting some of those special requests that come in, you know, like, "I'm totally into Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I finished the first 2 books, and now I want the 3rd one," you know, those kind of things. So they'll talk to their parent or grandparent on the phone and share that.
So what about older kids? Talk to me about those books, because typically older kids like longer books. So how does that work?
Well, usually when they're between the ages of 10 to 14, because 14 is the age that we stop reading books. And so we'll read to a certain point, and when we reach the 6 minutes, we usually do our readings allowed to about 6 minutes. And no more than that. We might let them go a few seconds, minutes over if they can finish something. And so then what happens, we say to the child or grandchild, "I'm leaving off on page 31. Well, we never get to 31. "I'm leaving off on maybe page 4. And the next time that I talk to you on the phone, you tell me how the book ended."
Oh,
so it gives them something to talk about, because a lot of the residents say it's very hard to talk to their children, young children especially, because they have nothing in common, and it's always the same thing. So that gives something for them to tell. Okay, do you know what happened to Bluey? Whatever.
And they often have more than one child. So that's also a challenge when we're reading. Well, you can pick out, you know, one book on this visit. And, okay, am I going to be reading for the 4-year-old or the 10-year-old? Oh. Well, if I choose something that's a little more complex, the older child can read it to the younger child as well, and they support each other on it.
That's beautiful. That is really beautiful. Mm-hmm. I think that I have a 3-year-old, and the Magic Treehouse books are a favorite from my 9-year-old nephews to my son, who loves his Magic Treehouse books. His Yoda player, he plays it to sleep for nap time, not for bed, but at nap time he'll listen to Magic Treehouse until he falls asleep.
Well, that's wonderful, because that's an old series.
Mm-hmm. And it's a favorite.
That
everyone loves it.
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful. I'm glad to find them.
But it's also, you know, talking about the suspense, We were in the car one day, and Elijah didn't want to listen to that particular Magic Treehouse book, but it was a new one I hadn't actually read when I was a kid, or when, I hadn't heard it yet. And it was just in the middle of a flood. And I was like, we have to know what's on the other side of the flood. Are they going to make it? Or, so that's kind of fun that you can have this joined effort in learning about the book. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me a little bit, could you go into that a little bit more about the parents, like not having, or grandparents not having anything in common, like having a hard time communicating with your kids? I feel like that's basically
I had a grandparent tell me recently that he hadn't even met his grandchild. He had been in so long. So he's trying to develop a relationship with a child that he hasn't even met. So when that child is able to talk, it's still going to be hard to relate to even where that grandparent is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when the two of them meet, when the grandfather gets out, all that grandfather will have to say is, "Hello, Charles," and Charles will know immediately that that's Grandpa Charles from hearing the voice.
It's so true.
The grandpa.
We're hoping someday that we're able to do video recordings, but right now that's not something that we have approval from the Department of Corrections to do. Read an article recently. I sent that to you. I think it was from Texas. They were doing the video recordings. Their program didn't have the same name as ours, but the idea was the same, and it was actually an employee of their Department of Corrections that maintained the books and did the video recordings and sent them out rather than volunteers. But you're right, when you've got that visual that goes along with it, especially if it's somebody that lives far away, not all of our residents come from Idaho.
Yeah.
We've got a number of books that we send out of state.
So I didn't actually realize that, you probably are working with a lot of people from all over, because, even people that move here, if kids go into foster systems or whatnot, or go back to grandparents, that might be out of the state as well.
Or people who've come here to work and made some bad choices and their families are out of state.
Yeah. When we talk about Catholic social teaching, we're supposed to go and feed the hungry, clothe the poor.
Visit the prison. Visit the prison. That's exactly what I want to say. And I have to be careful of that because I started out with having it in the Catholic Church, and we've had volunteers that are not in the Catholic Church, so I have to kind of stop pushing that. But that's another thing. I can't even think what the corporal works of mercy. That's another reason that I believe in Jesus. I believe in what he's given to us and my faith. And I'm glad that I practice that because that's one thing I can practice. Yes.
Is this the question you were asking?
Okay. I don't know.
Oh, that's okay. I wanted to make sure as well. I know I alluded to it earlier, but for me, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately as I look back over my life, what has been very consistent for me all the way through is a deep belief in the dignity of each human being, regardless of the circumstance. So I've been involved with Respect Life types of activities since I was in college, all the way through. And to me, this is just an extension of that belief.
It is.
We had Father John Mosier on, and one of the things that he talked about in his podcast that has stuck with me thus far is he said the reason that the right to life movement or the pro-life movement is so important is all rights stem from the right to exist. Right? So
yes.
But I think this is something interesting about our time is that we've come through this era of Roe v. Wade where human dignity is not admired or it's not acknowledged really in a lot of ways, but I think it trickles down because think about how people think about immigration. Think about how people think about prison ministry, right? I think in the general world, there's like, oh, you did something wrong, you did something bad, then you're now lesser. When that is not what Jesus comes and tells us to do. So this, when you really take a look at his Sermon on the Mount, or you look at the Beatitudes and you really chew on this, I think this is something that we all have to really be careful of how we think about people, because I think even people that are, yes, babies are very important, like the pro-life movement is so important, but are you being pro-life from conception to natural death?
Yes.
That doesn't mean just birth and natural death. It's, it's everything in between, and seeing that Jesus is in each person. And I know that I struggle with that as well. It's not like every day you're seeing everyone and you're like, that person's Jesus, that person's Jesus. But really, he has called us all to come and see them in a way and try to either be Jesus for them or see Jesus in them. Yes. Right? Yeah. So I kind of wanted to talk more about the prison ministry aspect of this, because again, this goes into Catholic social teaching and it's very scriptural. So how has that aspect of your faith influenced your program in ministry?
I think I had mentioned to you that I've been very involved in work against the death penalty as well. And I think an extension off of that has become the work with Storylink. And like yourself, I believe very, very much that each person has been created in the image of God, no matter how vile the choices are that they've made. And that there's also an opportunity for people to change. That prison isn't just about being punished, but also about growth and development. And Storylink is part of that as well. Is building relationships and taking care of families. And I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but something we were talking about on the way over here too is that when you have an individual who is serving time, whether it's for 6 months or for life, he or she is not the only person that's involved in this. The entire family.
Yes.
And they may be isolated. They may be afraid to say that they have a family member because they might be shunned by other people. And again, are we taking care of them and recognizing the beauty of their own soul and creation as well?
Yes.
So, Maryann, when you said, I don't remember if this was online or offline or when we talked about this, but you may have experienced some of this as your son, is that correct?
Yes.
Had gone to prison. So, had you felt like there was a stigma at all for him or for you?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. For the people that found out about it, I mean, they would feel sorry for you. And then they'd always say, well, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. No, you never get over the stigma of having your child in prison or even when he gets out of prison. But then really what happened to him when he did get out of prison, within a year, he was working at Corwin Ford and was Salesman of the Year. He could sell an igloo to an Eskimo. Anything he ever did worked out best for him. When he worked at Axiom Gym, he was training, and then, of course, he started training them. When he sold cars, he was training all of them. He was the trainer of the year in 1 year. And a year later, he was gone. He was dead.
It sounds like he overcame some of that stigma.
Oh, God.
But what about...
He just threw it over his shoulder and was, here I am again.
And you?
Did I throw it on my shoulder? No, it was very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard. And that things never change. It's always going to be that way. And I don't know what condition. I mean, the condition that he was in, he was Salesman of the Year, but everything he did, he was given the best. When he was 13 years old, he shot an elk, a moose, and a deer at 13 years of age.
Wow.
So there you go again. never hunted after that. So he was, I say lucky, but he was gifted in whatever he did. Salesman of the Year at Corin Ford. And a year later, he's drug overdosed. So, and I know that he's been in, that's why he was in prison to begin with, for 7 years. He could have gotten 11 years, but he only was given 7. But even being in prison didn't stop. He got out to the drugs again.
I have a family member who ended up moving after an arrest, and they felt like that was one of the best decisions because they could kind of get away from it and get some distance away from the situation. And they did change their life around. It's not like they continued that, but it was hard. I think that it has been hard for this person to go back or to come back because they know that everyone knows. And where they are now, no one knows. Mm-hmm. And so they can have a fresh start, basically. Yeah.
I would like to share, just add a little something here. Every year we need to go through our annual training with the Department of Corrections for volunteers. And every year the gentleman who does the training shares a very similar story about a resident who ended up in prison because of hitting a bicyclist. And it was not anything that was intentional. It was a matter of driving into sunlight and not seeing on the road. And yet this person was serving time for having killed that child, whether or not it was intentional. One of the points that he tries to make with that story is that any one of us at any time could end up serving time. Mm-hmm. That in some ways we're not any different than the folks that are behind the walls. And so it just goes back again to we're all created in the image of God. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point to bring out in this too, because like you said, there's a lot of mistakes. I mean, it could be someone being liable for something happening on their property when they weren't there, because it's their property. So there's, like you said, there's a lot of reasons that you could, end up serving time. And I think this is where, I mean, just because it's closer to me, my husband, like I said, my husband works in immigration, and I think, it's easy to listen to the news outlets and have an opinion, but it's only once you hear the stories and understand what's going on that you're like, wow,
different.
This is a human person that's going through this experience, right? Yeah, it's only when you can think of immigration as this big, problem. But what you're really dealing with is most people, I feel like there's so many people that may or may not come over illegally or not, or I should say, my husband would be like, Natalie, they're not illegal. It's not illegal. They're coming in without inspection. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Coming in without
that
inspection.
Sounds better, huh?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the legal definition too. So,
yeah.
But, you could talk about it, but then when you think about it, it's people that have families that are escaping something that maybe they can't file for asylum or whatever. So it comes down to this. And I think this is the heart of Catholic social teaching, is that behind every person that makes maybe a good or bad decision, there is some kind of motive like external to them. Mm-hmm. Like, we are reacting many times to our surroundings. So I think what we have to understand is that we would make, how we make decisions is based off of what circumstances that we're dealt with. Dealt. That's the right word.
That's the deal.
Yeah. Now that we've kind of touched on the humanity, right? And I guess from that, is this only for, so with Storylink, this is only for children, right? Because you guys are trying to connect that bond, right?
Yes. Right. And I don't think we go to 14, and I don't think that, I mean, do you think all the residents thought that their children would want to even read a book to their child? Have we ever had any?
I haven't heard anybody request it. It was older than that. No.
14 seems to be the age. Yes, yes.
What you guys are doing is so important because, again, it's not just one person. I love that you brought that up earlier. It's not just one person or two people. It's really a family, because I'm sure the people that get the link can share the QR code, and parents can hear children that are residents, or aunts or siblings could hear their brother or sister's voice.
Yes.
And so it really becomes a way to unite a family, right?
I know a lot of people, when they used to have CD players in the car, they would, and we were still sending CDs, they always would mention to us that we listened to that. Every time we get in the car, the children want to hear their mom or dad read the story. Yes.
Okay, so this is very interesting and kind of related to radio, but there's something about being in the car. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed. I don't think people really sit in silence in their cars, ever. I don't know, maybe they do. I did the other day, and I found out that my brakes were going bad, but...
Oh, dear.
You know when they start squeaking when you press on the brake? You know, you're like, oh, I guess I need to change those. Yeah. No, but really, though, most of the time we turn on the radio, right? And that's why the mission at Salt and Light is so important, is because someone turns on the radio and they're flipping through the channels, and then they might hear the message, right? And that's, again, with your CDs, when you're sending out the CDs, it could be every time they go in, there's that connection piece. So there's something unique, I think, about driving in a car that really impacts people. Hey, really quick, I just wanted to say that 71% of you that listen to our content regularly have yet to subscribe to our channel. If you're enjoying this piece of content, go ahead and click right now. It's a free and easy way for us to continue to bring the guests you want to hear and the conversations that you want to have. That being said, it's also a good way to help engage with us and have feedback, so we know what type of content you want to hear and making sure that every episode is worth your time. Thank you so much if you have already subscribed, and if you haven't, go ahead and click the button down below. How did you first discover this program again? You said that you had read this book.
Right there.
Yes.
I'm a clown. I have that book.
Yeah.
I opened it up, and that's what said I can do that.
Oh, wow.
I called up Dana Aberstein,
Here, I'm going to show this.
In Missouri.
I'm going to show this. So it says inmates connect with their kids. So you read this. When did you get this book? Did you get it back in 2011 when you became a clown, or?
Well, it had to be 2010 because I started Storylink in 2011, so it was probably 2009 or 2010. When I get inspired about something that really gives me a compassion, I hit it and I just do it. I'm a doer because that's what I want to do. Yes.
So you find this book and you say, I can do that. But what prompted that? It had to have been the Holy Spirit.
It had to be the Holy Spirit, because that's the way my whole life is kind of gone, is when the Holy Spirit sends me something to do, and then I look at the book, and I know for sure that I'm going to go forward for the Lord. That's just how I do things.
That's a beautiful way to do things.
Thank you.
Do you think there was any discernment in this? Was there any, did you take this to prayer? And I guess, what was that like to discern starting up a company like this? Or was it more like holy fire? Sorry, because that's
For some reason, I don't go to prayer right away because I have to get things done to get it started. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden I get it started and I see the results, and my husband will remind me what's going on. Then I say, I need to pray more about this. Yeah. And then when things kind of happen that go south, and I get all upset in a tizzy, and she knows where I do that, and that's why I've kind of calmed down and not I've got the program established. My volunteers like Jan are doing a great job taking care of it. And I've given all that to them and to the Lord to protect it. And I could just be thankful.
I'm going to go back a little bit, actually, and ask. So you've mentioned that you have many volunteers. So how many volunteers do you guys currently have?
We have over 50 if we count ones that are in the process of approval. I do know that I've got about 10 people that are in some phase of the application process, whether it's inquiry or they've been through training or they're waiting for approval.
Is that kind of the structure? Inquiry, training, approval?
Yeah.
And how does that work? So again, we're talking about the thing that's interesting about Catholic social teaching and most of the ministries that go along with that is it does interfere with the state quite a bit. You know what I mean? You have to, if you're feeding the poor and you want to start, a food bank or something, there's a lot of, or even like a homeless shelter or any of these things, usually you come up and you have to deal with government officials.
Regulations.
Yeah, and regulations. So how has that been working with Idaho specifically, and what does that really look like when it comes into the volunteer, right?
Well,
so if someone's thinking about volunteering, what does it look like?
So we're asking now people that are interested in volunteering in some capacity, go to our website, which is www.storylynkidaho.com, and or email info@storylink.com. But it's really best to go to the website because there are a couple of ways on the website to get to a very simple inquiry form to fill out. Not too many questions, pretty uncomplicated. You scroll to volunteer recruitment, click on the volunteer application, fill it out, and hit the submit button. There's also there a link to an Idaho volunteer page that will explain the steps to becoming approved by IDOC and to begin volunteering with Storylink. It has the full procedure on there and a link to IDOC, the Idaho Department of Corrections. Anyone who is a volunteer in the prison system has to have attended this 4-hour training. And they're offered several times a year. The next one is going to be August 20th, and after that there will be one in October. And they have an application that's a little longer there, but they're doing things like background checks and that kind of stuff for anybody who's coming in. You also indicate on that form which site you're interested in working at, and we've got a drop down of the sites on our website as well as on IDOC. Just some differences. Some people may be more comfortable working in a women's facility or a facility that is minimal security as opposed to working with men or a maximum security. Or there may be a time of day that works for somebody better than others. We have a couple of sites that we visit on Saturdays. There are some in the afternoons or early evening. So choosing which site they're interested in and getting that on there. After they've attended the training, and then the application is reviewed by IDOC, and we track to see what the status is on it. One of my responsibilities is tracking potential new volunteers and see if they've been approved yet. And we follow up with the volunteer service coordinators at each of the sites. So, yeah, there are some regulations for sure. And, we have other regulations because now this is our second anniversary of being a 501c3. We used to be kind of under the umbrella of St. Vincent de Paul through St. Mark's, but now we're our own 501c3. So there's things that we need to maintain for that as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, I know that offline you had actually told me about St. Vincent de Paul and how you guys were with them. And from what I understand, if anyone's listened to the interview with Ralph May, as I had him on, he talks about how their entry program back into into the community is so good that I believe part of the Idaho, he mentioned this in the podcast, but I think he says that the Idaho government has actually kind of given him some work because of how well they've done that. So for you guys to have that ministry linked together in the beginning, that makes so much sense. And I bet you part of the reason in their success is if you have a family connection. I mean, I think you're able to better serve your family and your community when you feel connected, right? Yes. And you have a purpose to work for and to work to. So I can see how your work has really influenced those people as well. Right?
And that's what has given me the compassion to know what my family has had and what my family has not had because of my son's choice. So, be it.
Yeah. And even when we're reading with residents now, and we'll ask, how close are you to reentry? And if it's coming up soon, we carry brochures with us for St. Vincent de Paul and give them to them on the spot. But, in some of the places that record, it'll be their education room, and I'll see information about St. Vincent de Paul right on the wall there already. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, and so how do you guys decide? I mean, I don't know much about the prison system in Idaho, but are you in all of the prisons in Idaho or just in...
Yeah, we're in 9 prisons in Idaho.
Okay.
There's 7 out off of Pleasant Valley Road, and then there's one in Orfino and one in Orfino and Cottonwood. Okay. And there is a women's prison in Pocatello, but there's another lady over there that she's a pastor, and her congregation have always gone out to that prison, and the money is provided by the pastor's church.
Oh, so they kind of take care of that facility.
So I don't know if it's going to become part of Storylink right now. It might be in the happening or in the works, but they've done it by themselves for many, many years.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a broad vision of hoping that Storylink would be available to all eligible residents in Idaho at some time. But that's your awesome big goal, right?
So this is another good question. We talked about the age capping out at 14, right? So if you have a resident that is in, and say maybe their child this is all hypothetical, their child is older when they enter in, do you think that, have you seen?
We still have books. I mean, we say 14, but we still have some books that they could choose, chapter books and that are appropriate for 15 and 16 and 18. So we have that ready to provide
depending on
to them.
Reading levels and that kind of thing. Yeah.
I guess the reason why I was wondering is does someone age out of the program, or have usually they've been re-entered by the time they do it for their whole, time there, and then they re-enter?
I don't think we've gone through and
never,
and said, oh no, you can't read your child anymore because they're 15. No,
okay. If they come,
it's just the books. The books that we choose are in the age ranges, but we're not going to go through and
absolutely.
They've been approved to read. We have a book for them to read.
Yeah. And so then my next question, kind of along those same lines, is: are all residents able to be in your program?
No. If there's any kind of no contact order,
that's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Then, and that's why it's rechecked every month in case something has changed in that time.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So there is a lot of flexibility
each month to read.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I suppose if there has been some infraction on the unit, that they could be denied the opportunity to participate in a particular month too.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what does it look like as a volunteer then? Do you have different positions, or
yes,
all of
we
them
do.
the same,
and there are several kinds of roles that a volunteer can fill, and not all of them are inside of a prison, because not being inside of the prison isn't for everybody. Within the prison, some of the roles would include being a greeter as the group comes in, helping to check in readers would be another one. Recording the resident is another one. So those are the basic ones that are happening inside of the facilities.
So walk me through what it looks through, because you kind of said, so they come in a group. It's not like one person at a time. They come in a group.
The only one that might be a little bit different is we have so few men that read at maximum security that sometimes those come in one or two at a time.
And usually, sometimes the officer has to go get them because they're in a block that they have to be escorted out of their block. A block is actually where they live, their community.
Yeah.
So usually they come in 2 or 3 groups of people, and those usually happen on like the hour or the half hour when they're having what's called when they movement from one area to movement. So, let's say it's 8 o'clock and we're starting at one facility and the first group comes in, and we may have 12 to 15 guys in that group, and they come in and sit down in chairs, and we check to see if we have any new readers, because they'll need a little orientation to how this happens, right? And then 3 at a time they come up to check in and to choose their books. Good. And get fitted with an envelope and a pen to write their note with. They go sit back down to do that. The next 3 come up. As the guys finish writing their notes, then they come up to the table to have their note checked and make sure that they've addressed their envelope correctly.
And legibly.
And once that's cleared, then they sit down and wait for a room to be ready for reading. We usually have 3 or 4 volunteers in separate rooms that are recording.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it can be quiet.
Yeah, yes. We've got to be able to do that. Yeah. And so then they go, so this is my first time, and I get to go in, and I'm going to read, and the volunteer tells me hello and goes through the process with me. Then we turn on the recorder, read for 6 minutes. With a board book, it doesn't always take 6 minutes, but we've talked about how you can point to the picture and say, "Where's the puppy?" and what does the cow
make
say?
The sound of the puppy.
Yeah, those kind of things. And they leave their message on there too. And then we turn the recorder off, and the book and a note to the caregiver is put inside so they know how to access the recording, and bagged up. And we say, "See you next time."
Yeah.
And at the next movement period, a new group comes in until we've been through everybody that's been approved on the list for that day.
And do you know how we get the residents to sign up for Storylink at the prison?
Mm-mm.
Okay, each prison has a VSC, a volunteer service coordinator. And so the residents, if they would like to read, they have to go to the volunteer service coordinator and sign up for Storylink. And then they he or she, who is a VSC, checks to see if they are approved to read a book to their child or grandchild.
So that's a great question. Do you guys have someone in the facility advertising for your program, or is it something like they know?
Yeah, it depends on the facility.
Yep.
There'll be announcements. Some of them have the in time CCTV running where the announcement will be up there. Some of our volunteer service coordinators are very proactive, but they're also not full-time employees. So there's a limit to how much they can do, but some of them really do a good job of promoting Storylink.
Have you found that some of the residents are actually good at word of mouth? Like, oh, you have like a child, like you should sign up for this program.
Yes, definitely.
And that's what we can't do it at. We don't get the max because it's always within blocks, and they only come from. It's usually the same block, and at max, a lot of times the officer has to go and pick them up and bring them back because they have to. The way the prison was built, it wasn't built for. It was the first prison, Max. It's the first prison that was built out on Pleasant Valley Road, so it's a little more difficult to work with.
At several of the facilities, we also have residents whose inside work is assisting with Storylink, and it makes our work so easy there. They help with the check-in. They go and remind guys that maybe didn't hear the announcement, walk the guys down the hall to the next room that's available and keep an eye on the volunteer that's in that room there. And they're amazing.
They go through a mentor program. And I've been working with a mentor that's in the maximum prison because I'm doing we're having a Storylink tea party which to help fund, to get some money into the bank.
What date is the tea
October
party?
25th.
Okay, October 25th, you're having a tea party.
Yes.
At St. Mark's from 12 to 3.
And Jan is the one that's going to be, is the one that's going to be talking to you and giving you the information as soon as possible to get out on the Salt and Light Radio.
Yeah, just don't have the flyers ready yet. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking next month it'll be ready because the event's in October. So
Yeah.
Yep. And that's always I like it because it's a fun time. What we do is we have a host or a hostess that has a table. And if you have 8 chairs, you invite 8 or 8 people that, I'm trying to say this year, invite 8 people that might be interested in being a Storylink volunteer or wanting to know more about Storylink. Instead of just asking your friend who's only there just for the tea party and has no intentions to go out to a prison, because that's always hard. Some people want nothing to do with prison, but when you're used to being in a prison or at the prison for things and visiting your son in prison, just makes another way to help bring those.
It's a fundraiser. It's a way to spread the word about Storylink, and it's also a social event for our volunteers.
Yes.
And the tables are themed around storybooks.
A book, yeah.
And then there's usually a raffle and or auction items going on too, and that's where some of the money comes from for it.
Are you going to be having parishes announce this as well?
Oh, try to get them in bulletins, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's those receptionists. You have to get past them, right?
That's right.
So, Natalie, I didn't finish answering the question about volunteers.
Oh, okay.
You
yes,
asked
yeah,
what it looked like inside of the prison for a volunteer. But outside, we need help sometimes with cleaning books, making sure we don't have marks and things in them. So there's some kind of, clerical things like that. Preparing and taking the books to the post office, which is a big deal. Purchasing the postage and getting them in the mail so that they get out to the children and the caregivers. Let's see. And the donations are really important. I consider that also a volunteer function. As I mentioned earlier, costs us about, on average, $870 a month to mail the recordings and the books out. But we've been budgeting as if it was $1,000 because of the way postage costs have gone up. With things like the envelopes and also that need to be purchased. But the big deal is the postage. So,
what do you guys feel like you need the most right now? Say someone is listening to this and they think, I love this ministry, I want to get involved. Maybe they're not able to help locally, but what is your biggest need? Is it volunteers on the ground, boots on the ground? Is it financial? Is it prayers? Like, where are you guys at?
Always prayers. I think the financial is really huge for us at this point because we're not going to make enough at the tea party to cover the expenses for a year.
Not at all.
Yeah. We'll fall very short of that, but the tea party is still something that we like to do. Another function for volunteer also is just kind of the technological side of it. We have a couple of volunteers that are now helping with updating the QR codes.
Yes.
Every time we have new residents that are approved for reading, a QR code needs to be created for them, or keeping track of when a resident moves from one facility to another, so that we get the QR code associated with the correct facility. We've been doing work on our website, people that are comfortable doing that type of thing as well. So it's a lot. Absolutely, all of it. All of the above, but probably the one that we're most worried about right now is financial, because it's a hefty fee for that amount of postage.
Yeah. And it is that's basically, from what I understand, that's probably your main cost, right? It's just.
And it has really helped us. That's why it's been so important that we finally got a website set up. Because if there is a person that would like to donate some money, it's easy for them to go on the website and enter some money.
And remind me, what's that website again?
It's www.storylynkidaho.com. And we also have a post office box number because we know not everybody is
That's true.
in love with technology. So, again, with the Storylink website, there is an actual button for doing the donation online if you're comfortable with it. Otherwise, it's Storylink Idaho, Post Office Box 4372, Boise.
Do you guys think that there's anything that we've really missed?
We have a lot of fun. Oh, we could tell you something else fun that we do in December. Yes. It's kind of the clown and the Storylink sort of overlap in this one. Maryann got the idea a couple of years ago
Zinging.
Zinging
with the residents.
The Christmas carols. So going out to a couple of facilities, and so we're the Storylink Zingers, and we go out and sing carols at request of the different sites.
And they love it.
And
That's
this
amazing.
And
So is this your volunteers and you guys?
I
or do you
tell
have
my
others that come to
volunteers I'll give them a zinger if they come out and zing with us. Yes, I do.
do- What is a zinger?
It's not as good as a Twinkie.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
And I used to, and my first name as a clown was Twinkie because I really like Twinkies.
Of course, she moderates all of this with her various costumes and hats, and she delivers a few zingers in the form of jokes. We are not a professional singing group.
Yes.
The first time we went out, we had a 20-minute rehearsal at her house before we left. But
and I was quiet. I just did stupid stuff. I mean, funny stuff. So when they sang Frosty the Snowman, I put on a headband, so I was Frosty the Snowman, because I can't sing. And then, just think about the Christmas carols that I always have a hat for, headband.
Yeah. And, again, it's not anything professional, but it is so
They love
appreciated
it.
by the men and women.
They sing with us.
Few tears there too, but they join
they
in
cry.
it and laugh and sing, and it's a lot of fun.
And I've got to get that arranged right now because there's so many people going out to the prisons. You got to remind me to do that.
Okay.
You
I'll
gotta
remind
call.
you.
Yeah. Okay.
How's that for postscript?
I love that. So, okay, is anyone able to come and sing carols with you guys as well? Or is it just for volunteers?
People can come in for a short term, like 2 or 3 visits a year without doing
It's a
the
one
whole
day
training. Yeah, I think so, but I'm not sure.
I think that'd be hard to.
So what I'm hearing here is everyone volunteer if you're interested in singing with the Zingers. So.
Well, would you be interested in singing?
We might be interested in singing.
Okay, so
We'll find out.
you can get a one day, and that's easy. You they just put you through a background check. That's the main reason.
Yeah. It's not. You don't have to go through all the training and
No.
all those pieces with IDOC. No.
That we have to.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on to the show today. And I just want to, again, thank you for the work you're doing and for the books you're providing and for the stories you're helping and the families you're keeping together. We just, I'm so glad that we're able to come on to this podcast and to be able to share your message and what you're doing in the community and how we can continue to be the hands and feet of Jesus.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Desert Wanderers. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up as well as subscribe down below. We're produced by Salt and Light Radio, so you can find us on social platforms at Salt and Light Radio or Desert Wanderers Podcast. We produce episodes every week and we launch them for you on Wednesdays. So make sure to tune in for next week's episode and we'll see you then.